Welcome back, monster fans. Today in this history of horror, we're going to be talking about Dracula from 1931. We're going to be exploring the background of the film, talking about some of the people behind it, and we're also going to be looking at the themes that are embedded into this movie and why all these things together make this a staple of the American horror film. So let's sink our teeth in. This film was directed by Todd Browning in 1931, and for those of you who have not seen the film, it opens with Renfield, played by Dwight Frye, who plays a real estate agent that is seeking to move Dracula, played by Bela Lugosi, over to England. Unfortunately for Renfield, he is turned into a servant of Dracula, and when they both head over to England, they terrorize Mina, who is the leading actress of the film, and she is played by Helen Chandler. As Dracula continues to try to turn her into one of the undead, Van Helsing, played by Edward Van Sloan, is our main hero, as he is catching on constantly to the fact that Dracula is actually one of the undead, and so now it's his job to stop him from turning Mina into one of his brides. Although Bela Lugosi is seen as iconic as Dracula, he was actually not considered for the role initially. I think this comes from the fact that he had this very heavy accent, and that the studio considered a lot more American actors before him, although Bela Lugosi had played Dracula on stage prior for a while. The studio was taking a big gamble. This film was released in the midst of the Great Depression, so given that and a disorganized production, they were really kind of not too sure how this movie was going to play out. Carl Laemmle, who was the head of Universal, actually wasn't too big on horror pictures, but so this was even like a big thing for Universal. Although it did pay off because they actually had a huge box office on its release date of February 14th, 1931, which was perfect for them because they had billed the film as a romantic thriller. So I think it was actually a win-win for Universal. So looking at some of the themes of Dracula, much like in Frankenstein, this movie heavily deals with the Great Depression. Dracula, as a vampire, drains the life force of his victims through draining of the blood, and a lot of people parallel this with how the Great Depression drained a lot of people out of their money and their food. Dracula is also kind of built up as this aristocratic, well-dressed upperclassman, which, as he feeds on his victims, this is also seen as the upper class feeding on the lower class in order to have a better life. Also, one of the fears that is a bit kind of outdated but is read into due to projections of the people who made the film being putting in their own ideas is integration of immigrants and fears of foreigners, which is Dracula is very much a representative of foreign people, and as he kind of goes and soughts after Mina and turns her into like this half vampire, half human, a lot of people read that into people at the time being fearful of mixing of races. Another theme in Dracula that is explored heavily is the kind of the connection between Dracula as a sex symbol. This is a huge theme after this movie. This kind of set the stone for that, given that a lot of vampire movies would deal with sex going forward. Bela Lugosi brings a lot of sex appeal to the role. He's very suave and charismatic, and he actually posed a sexual threat to most of the characters. Either the men and the women have this attraction towards him. People are either intrigued by him or sexually aroused by Dracula. This kind of ties into a fourth theme here, which is the animalistic urges that Dracula kind of gives out to people, and how that he kind of takes place within himself as well, versus the civilized like nature of someone like Van Helsing. Van Helsing restores order in the film by the end of the film by repressing Dracula and what he represents with symbols of religion and with the cross. So this kind of parallels religious notions against sexual urges, against animalistic urges. Overall, I think Dracula is actually one of the most important horror films, especially in American history, given a lot of the themes that it does address. Besides those things, though, it also, as a film, holds up pretty well, even without a soundtrack behind it, which it didn't have. Bela does cement the character very strongly in the history's kind of psyche. Every time we see a vampire or think of Dracula, Bela Lugosi's image is like one of the first things that comes up, or things that were inspired by Lugosi, whether it's Count Chocula or the Count in Sesame Street. Many of those took heavy influence from Bela Lugosi in this film. And it's also noteworthy to say that the Spanish version, if you haven't seen that one, came out the same year, and what they did was they brought in a Spanish cast at night to film on the same sets with the same script, and it's actually a pretty superior film in many ways. Although you don't have Bela Lugosi's great performance, there is a lot of technical advances to it, and it is a lot more risque than the American version. So that's all we have for Dracula in this video. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to see horror content / monster content throughout the week, go ahead and head over to Instagram at my page UniMonsters. If you have any suggestions for future videos or comments on this video, go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you.